What's going on, everybody? Welcome to TMJFB YouTube channel. Today, we got another kind of exclusive interview, but really we're going to be talking about some of Tom Bianchi's favorite things, which are the rules. I have my guest. You can see him already. Name's Tom Bianchi. Last draft, I think he went shirtless for a little while. We loved
I
it.
did.
It was great. How you doing, Tom?
Doing well, Todd. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I see you swapped out the Yankees hat for the Tigers hat, so
Yeah,
that's something.
I think I still have a Yankees hat somewhere, but you gotta keep it local. How about that local sports team?
There you go. First question, actually, before we even go into anything, I just thought of it.
Yeah.
Who is your favorite Yankee all time and right now?
Oh, that's
I
tough.
did put you on the spot, so I'll give you
That
a
is no,
chance to
that's a
think
tough
about it.
one. I mean, the my two favorite. It comes down to two. So it's between Jeter and Rivera,
Okay, that seems fair. So
and
that's
so
fine. We'll leave
yeah.
him at that.
Yeah, from the '90s, like, that's, when I was the biggest fan, when the team was most exciting, when I was alive. Like, I guess I could say, like, Lou Gehrig, but
Right,
I don't
right.
think that would be, um oh, that is tough. I'm gonna say, probably Rivera,
Okay.
but
And what would you say about your favorite guy now? Mine's clearly Aaron Judge.
yeah, Aaron Judge is good. Um, yeah, I think it's tough to top Aaron Judge. I
He's
think he even might, because it's very funny because he's very, very tall, and so he's just bigger than everyone else,
right,
which is always just funny to see him on the base pass.
right.
A
He's very
picture of
iconic.
him.
He just
Yeah,
he just
but
has that New York like
yeah,
I don't know. But what's funny is I feel like he's very humble still. But
yes,
yeah, which is great about him. But I'll
and
take Aaron Judge.
I like that he's number 99, which is like, well, he's the biggest guy possible. He's like a creative player where you're just like, I'm gonna make a baseball player that's super tall, and he's gonna be number 99
That's
because
funny.
he's so big, and he's gonna hit the ball really hard. And he's a creative player in real life.
That's
So
true. That's funny you say that because I've done that, and except for I've made my guy like 300 pounds, which is even funnier.
yeah,
But you know,
yeah. The extremes of the really short guy.
right, right. All right. So, Mr. Bianchi, we have some rules that we want to kind of go over. Nothing's
Yeah.
like being decided here, but I think they're important
No.
things that we want to kind of bring forth to the league.
These are the things to be decided.
Right, yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
I think that I want to start directly and going right into what Shawnee alluded to, and I think people are talking about a lot are pods. I want to get your
Mhm.
rapid reaction to what do you think about keeping pods for this year, just right off the top.
Yeah. I was a little surprised that there was a little sort of popularity around it, because it was just sort of a, stopgap. The season's gonna be shorter, and we're not gonna play a lot of games, and so to, like, get to, like, the 22 number of games played, we would do pods. Um, and so I thought it'd be something where we're like, "Well, the year's short, so, we'll put up with this." So I was surprised to see it back, like, to people like, "Oh, we can do this all year round."
Right.
Um, yeah, I think it's good that you're getting more matchups. I think you're less likely to get screwed by, "Well, I'm the second best team this week, and I'm playing the first best team, but it's a loss no matter what."
That is the worst. One thing I noticed that I will say in favor before I go into things I don't like. Uh,
Mhm.
the thing that I really liked, I don't know if you do this, but I watch like my app when baseball season's going on. I will
Yes.
stare at my phone and like pitch by pitch, I'm like, you idiot! Like, why didn't you throw a freaking strike or like,
Mhm.
oh, a double? You gotta be kidding! Like, and it just
Yeah.
like it stresses me out. But when we had pods, like you're competing against a whole crap ton of guys, so you couldn't
Yeah.
possibly keep track of all of them. So really,
Mhm.
you're just watching your own guys. So my stress level actually went down with pods, oddly enough.
Just as self-care, you're in favor of pods?
Right, right. I will say the thing that I was trying to think of, like, what's the downside of pods? I actually did at one point go through and say, like, you remember when you used to do the JTFFL, like, luck factor?
Yeah.
I tried to do something similar because, I thought that Shawnee's pods were really easy last year, and I was like,
Mhm.
okay, like, is that true or not? It did turn out that his pods were a little bit easier, but he scored fifth in points and he ended fifth in the standings. So that led me down the rabbit hole of like, okay, where did you finish like points versus
Mhm.
standings? And the only team that was like kind of unlucky was actually Jeff, who finished
Mhm.
first in points but third in overall. Everybody else was only like maybe one spot away from where they finished. So I was like, okay, that's a really good thing for pods. Thing I don't like, and you can probably attest now that the NASCAR league exists, I think pods on ESPN doesn't exist, and it was kind of a pain in the
Right.
nuts to maintain.
Yes.
Fantrax does do it, but Fantrax is also kind of different.
Fan tracks for daily lineup changes, and it's kind of worse than ESPN for like scoring and things like getting the updates and stuff like that. The probable pitchers. I think it's a little bit worse. It's a trade off. You get more custom. It's more customizable, but you can't.
Right.
ESPN is very easy to use. It's a
Right,
big
and
company.
it's got all our history, and I don't know.
Right.
I with the NASCAR league, which if you don't do NASCAR, I actually really enjoyed it, and it might be worth your time to do it. I don't know if anybody else does, but it was kind of hard to tell anything, and I know I'm just not used to it, but I couldn't tell if my driver was actually active or not. So that was my big negative towards pods. Was is that ESPN and be a lot more maintenance.
Yeah. It's a lot more work offline. I know we already have the doc, which is already something where you have to make, you know, IL changes in ESPN and then also do it on the dock as well. So that would be more of a tracking thing. I don't know how much work would go into making it easier to check the standings and scoreboards and things like that. So,
Right. I do
uh,
recall too. Making the actual schedule was hard. I don't know
yeah.
why, but it just like it wouldn't line up, and I actually punted it to Jeff, who's kind of like the schedule guru, and
Mhm.
even he was like, "This thing, like I got it the best I could," which it
I
was.
wonder, yeah, I wonder if there's a way because of their number of weeks and the number of teams in the league, if there's some combination of pod that would allow us to play every team the same number of times.
Right,
Because right now, what is it, like a 22-week season and um, 12 teams, so you can't really line that up on a one for one. But I don't know if there's a
right,
variation where you could figure that out.
right.
That would be a positive if the pod could make it so everyone's playing every team the same amount of times or the same number of times. You're going to see teams after the trade deadline, before the trade deadline, they're going to look very different, but
Right.
uh, it's the same. It's essentially the same team.
Right. So I think if you're deeply in favor of pods, because if I was to vote for pods right now, and I'll ask you the same thing, if I was to vote on pods right now, I would probably lean no because of that maintenance. But if
Mhm.
somebody who's very in favor of pods thinks that they can put the schedule together easily and kind of like
Mhm.
bring that to the table, I might go the other way. What do you
Yeah,
think?
yeah, I can see that. I think generally the idea is this is a very unwieldy league as is, and it's there's a lot of work, and if we can avoid adding our extra work for ourselves, we should and let ESPN handle it. But we always have to change the ESPN schedule stuff anyway, don't we?
Yeah, every year. It's not too bad because it's like a puzzle. You can make it like
Mhm.
the lineups work like you play everybody twice, but you do have to go in and change every week, which is annoying, and it takes like half an hour, but it does work.
Right.
Um,
I'm sure there's an extra thing with having the minor league teams in there probably makes it a little bit harder too.
yeah, you have to like move them out, and so they're never. Yeah, it is a bit of a pain for sure. Um, and I guess any final thoughts on the pods before I move on?
Um, no, I don't have I don't have a strong feeling on the pod, so it'll be interesting to see what the discussion ends up with. And you know, right now the default is we used them last year, so people might be used to them and liking them. But
Right, and I think that maybe my last thought is if this season ends up getting shortened by some
mm,
degree for some reason again, then
Yeah.
you're probably going to be looking at pods because you won't have a clean schedule. But we'll see.
Right. Right.
Right as of right now, I can say everything I've read has said full season, spring training, full season. But as this world works,
Yeah.
we just don't know if that's going to happen. I mean,
You
look at
don't.
hockey; it's crazy right now. Which I think is a good segue into the expanded roster discussion
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
initially I was thinking, oh well, we'll just go back to normal.
Mhm.
But then I was like, well, the world's not really going back to normal. Do we entertain, not only entertain, but should we consider something for expanded roster again this year? Because COVID's not done yet, it
Right.
seems.
Yeah, and I think people have been sort of wanting an expanded roster generally, and my general, uh I'm always trying to be the side of, well, we can't have all the players we want, and so you have to make decisions, and that's sort of the point of the league is you have
Mhm.
to make choices between the guys. But I can see an argument, especially with the way baseball's played has sort of changed a little bit, especially with pitchers,
Mhm.
and gives you more flexibility on your bench if you have a little bit more room where you just don't have to carry all these pitchers because guys are going to get hurt. And so, maybe you can be a little bit more flexible with like a second catcher that plays on off days or just so there's, different ways to set up a lineup, I think is a good thing.
Mhm. For sure. Because I know that the 7 inning games are also weird because it's
Mhm.
like I don't know. I think they're doing that again too.
Yeah.
But you'd get a catcher. He's not going to play both games. He's only going to play the first game, so he's only getting 7 innings.
Right.
It's just I don't know. The whole thing was kind of strange. Um, so yeah, like in my head initially, I was just full blown AAA is going to go back to the way it was. I don't
Mhm.
know if we entertain the idea of like instead of the entire AAA coming back and being as part of the MLB, maybe it's three, maybe it's four,
Right.
maybe it's lesser than it was because last year was kind of, let's admit, it was a bit of a scramble to just
Yeah.
get things going. So with more thought, maybe we do expand, kind of, but less
Mhm.
people. I don't know. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that's possible, and if, like, something around that, maybe we add, like, legitimately just add more bench spots and have AAA be smaller. So, like, instead of, like, a 23 player roster, it becomes 25, and then AAA then becomes instead of what is it at now?
I think
8
it's
guys, it's 6
yeah,
guys?
I think it might be. Oh shoot, I wanted to say 12. It's probably 10.
That's the dream for some, I'm
That
sure.
is the dream. I like that
Yeah.
idea that you just said. Like if this was gonna actually be a normal year, which I just don't think it is. I think guys.
Mhm.
I mean, Bieber just got COVID, and it's like like I said, hockey league right now, half the teams aren't even playing, and it's really
Right.
frustrating, especially when you don't have like anybody to play that day. So I think that talk about this league because I think that something's gonna have to happen for this something.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's the same as last year. It's probably something in the middle, but
Right.
I do want to bench that because I have a topic that I know that you want to talk about, which is the CBI. Which, if for
Okay.
all of you that may not remember, basically the
Why would
CBI.
anyone care about the CBI? Why would anyone remember it?
That's a good question. Yeah, that's fair. Uh, if you're in the
Just Chad
NIT,
and I.
right, right. The bottom four teams basically had a mini playoff, and whoever won that playoff would get the first overall pick. The reason that existed was to try to give the bottom team something to do, something to play for.
Mhm.
But obviously, this happened, and so Tom, I'll just give you free reign to speak here.
I just think it's like the draft order is sh except for one instance, is just the standings from last year and reversed. So it's not like the CBI person is moved to 12th place in the standings, and so they get to pick first. It's just a random, maybe not random, but it's a like a side sort of gimmicky thing. Um, I think generally I've been in the bottom 4 a good amount recently, and I don't think that, like, at the bottom 4 level, you want, like, "You know what? I want this season to keep going." I want to do 2 more weeks of this.
Right, right.
Uh, but I'll admit I forgot about it halfway through. Like I was like, oh man, I gotta deal with this now. So I ended up signing like a bunch of guys. And I don't know if you saw, but I have the most owed at the draft because of all the transactions and things like that. And I ended up with like a $99 cap anyway.
I did see that, and there's a lot of
A real
transactions.
a real waste of money.
Right, because especially going to the draft, you kind of had the I'm I'm gonna try to maybe save money here,
Yes.
maybe punt a little, maybe I'll have a 50,
Mhm.
$60 team, and it
Yep.
ended up being the most anyway. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so that I understand that. Um, I think that I generally agree with you after seeing kind of what happened. Um,
Yeah.
the the big thing that actually stuck out with me too is that, and bear with me, this might be hard to explain, but the
Mhm.
bottom, like you might not always be fighting for the number one pick. So if I traded
Right.
you my pick and I am in the bottom four next year, I don't have a first round pick.
That's a good
So
point.
if I traded it to Jeff and I'm
Mhm.
playing you and I win, then Jeff gets the first round pick.
Right.
That doesn't make
Yeah.
any
Yeah,
sense. I get nothing by that.
if you don't own the rights to your CBI pick, there's no extra incentive besides whatever scant amount of pride you can get from winning that.
Exactly, and in fact, it could theoretically be in your best interest to punt and to not try
Right.
to win. Say you and I were playing, and we swapped picks or whatever. I don't have my pick, but I have yours. I would just like purposely lose that game.
Mhm.
So that's the thing I don't like about it the most. I thought it was kind of fun last year. We got a good joke out of it, obviously this year, but yeah,
Yeah.
if I was to vote right now, I would probably vote with you and removal. I assume that's your position.
Yes. It's not terrible, it's just I just don't like it,
Right, right.
and that may be, colored by my personal experience with it, but I'm not a fan of it right now.
That
Maybe
seems
one
fair.
maybe this year I finish, ninth and I have like a, pretty good solid ninth team in the CBI, and then I'll be all in favor of it. So,
True, true. The first year I think we did NIT, we talked about giving the fifth round pick to the winner of the NIT, which is
yeah.
similar, which I think initially I was for, but now I'm kind of leaning back the other way. So
Mhm. Yeah,
very
I'd
interesting.
be interesting to see. I haven't looked into that, like what the final standings are, because it's first and second are the two finalists, and then third and fourth are tiebreaker versus by regular season
Mhm.
of just like the playoff teams. There's no third and fourth game.
Right.
Um, the NIT final standings, is that just is it the NIT order? So the NIT winner is fifth, and then six is the NIT runner up, and then seven, eight are tiebreakers based on regular season, or does it have any effect on the official final standings? I don't know how much you would care about being fifth and sixth besides
The pick.
draft order. Yeah.
Right. I think if I remember off the top, I always struggle with this as well. I think Weast has the sixth overall pick because
Mhm.
me and Weast tend to talk about fantasy baseball way more than probably we should. So he's got the sixth overall pick, but he won the NIT, which in theory, if we went by any NIT standings, would put him at I don't know, much later than sixth, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think that it's just based purely off standings unless it's the CBI or the World Series winner,
World Series.
right?
Yep.
Um,
Okay.
and I don't know why it's that way. I don't know if the MLB does it that I can't even remember. I think the NFL.
We vote however we want to vote,
Right, right,
So
right,
we're in charge of the league. We can vote any way we want to vote.
right. Yeah, that's true. That's right. This is a democracy after all, or at least
Yes.
we claim it to be. At least we try to
Yeah.
make it that way. Um,
Yep.
So the next one I want to bring up, I think actually I like, and I'll try to explain it here. I might put a graphic up if I ever learn how to edit videos. Um, Weast had an ARB rule change that he wanted to bring up, and so I'll try to explain it really quick. I have Aaron Judge going into ARB 1. So if the highest bid, say, was $18, I could basically decide to give him to whoever for $18 3 years, or I could decide to keep him at the 40% value, which is like $7 or whatever.
Mhm.
So what Weist is saying is there should actually be another option on there. I could rather keep him at that 1 year, 7.2, have him go to ARB the next 2 years. I could get rid of him. Or what if we added one that said that I could essentially keep Judge for 3 years, 18, which is what the highest bid was at the silent auction. Aaron Judge is probably a bad example because he'd make so much money. You probably wouldn't take that choice. But now think
Mhm.
about somebody, say, I'll use my team again, Andrew Heaney. Andrew Heaney, if he was going to ARB right now, the high bid might be five. Just to
Mhm.
throw that out there. So if the high bid is five, and I'm sitting here looking at Andrew Heaney going, well, I think over 3 years he's an $8 kind of player.
Yeah.
I might take that 3 year five and just cash out basically of that contract at 3 years five, as opposed to getting the 1 year, I don't know, $2 or whatever.
Mhm.
Hopefully that makes sense. I'll try to throw a thing up there for everybody. General thoughts on that?
Yeah, I like that. I think it's giving yourself, the owner and team, more options on that, and it's their choice to decide which option is best for the team, and you're kinda getting a little bit more gambling, and then you get more, I know we've generally been trying to figure out a ways to get more multi-year contracts, and so that would be a way to do it, that if you feel that you got lowballed on the player, is coming off a down year, or is gonna has something coming up that they're gonna be better, um, you can lock that in. I think that's, there's a risk reward for that, and I think it's a nice wrinkle where I don't think there's any sort of reason not to do it,
Right,
besides that it'd be a complication, which, is a fair argument against that, like, well, we got another thing we gotta think about.
right, right. True, true. The
And then
Go ahead.
it also, I think, would be a little bit more, price enforcing, I think, would have to be, if you think about, if you're one of the teams that is not the owner, you have to make sure you're putting in some. I mean, you'd have to do that to make sure they're paying the fair share anyway,
Mhm.
but it might keep them from. You have to think about it a little bit more on that angle.
Right, right. And I'll say the thing that I do like, because I always had this thing with ARB, which is like you want your players to play well. Um,
Mhm.
but if you're kind of in a down year with ARB, you almost want them not to play well
Right.
because you're going to end up paying more for them the next year, which is realistic. To be fair,
Yeah,
that's how it
that
actually
can
works.
happen.
And it kind of sucks. And we're all owners now, so we're like, screw these players.
Right.
But as so thinking about it that way, it was kind of like, man, if Andrew Heaney in this example, I really think he's going to break out big. And then
Mhm.
I'm going to be paying him 12 and maybe 15, his final year when he's a top 10 player. I'm going to lock him up. That's why I like it, is because you can kind of, if you really
Mhm.
believe in the guy, you can get out ahead of it.
Yeah. I think it's a fun wrinkle, and it lets you have your faith in your guys. And like for me, on my example, on my team is like Byron Buxton,
Hmm.
who's coming into his never quite lived up to his potential. And so, if I'm a true believer, I could, coming out this year, lock him in for 3 years, thinking like, oh, this is the year he blows up, which I think, that might be folly to think that, but
Right,
it could be a way to lock in a deal.
and how sucky is it when you have Buxton and he plays for a team for 3 years and does not live up to the hype, and then he's gonna go, he's re-signing for ARB1, whatever, and then
Mhm.
he absolutely blows up, and it's like, dang it, like I've been invested in this guy for 4 years.
Right.
He's given me nothing, and now I'm paying him, at a discounted market value, but I'm still paying him a lot more. And man, that really that hurts when you could have got out in
Mhm.
front of it. So I mean, that's why I like it. Um, More options, the better, I think. Um, Weast has a lot
Yeah.
of good ideas.
I generally am in favor of rules that give you the team owner more options to do something, where to make a choice on how they wanna build their team,
Right.
and so I like that.
The players.
Flexibility.
Do
Yeah.
you think the players would hate this rule?
Oh, of course.
They would just reject it regardless, even if it was
Yeah.
better for them. Which, not to go too far into a rabbit hole, but like, why don't players want a DH, a universal DH? Like, I don't understand. I know that they're rejecting this whole thing for like the expanded playoff, but like,
Mhm.
you would think that if you have more DHs, you have more players making more money, more opportunity to play that position.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know what that is all about. I don't know if, like, the pinch runners have a lot of sway in the union or what, but
Right? That could be. That could be. I need to. I like I always said, Bumgarner hits 3 home runs a year, so maybe he's got a lot of
yeah.
sway. Yeah.
Yes, it's the pitchers who wanna hit are the guys who are in charge of the union.
Right. Right. Exactly. Okay, so we're rattling through this. One last thing, I probably should have started the show with, but
Mhm.
we kind of want to talk about what are the odds we could come to at least some conclusion on some of these rules prior to the draft, so that we don't end up spending an hour, an hour and a half, or in the
Yeah.
ARB year, three to
Yeah.
four hours, and breakfast and whatever the whole night
Mhm.
before discussing rules. Um, any thoughts on how we can like nail some of this down a little bit?
Yeah, I think that was part of the frustration over the summer, especially because we were, flying by the seat of our pants and trying to figure it out that, um, the text chain was definitely not the answer to how to get the rules settled quickly and efficiently, but I think we have hopefully this video, 'cause, people wanna watch the videos, and maybe sometimes they miss all the emails, and they'll be thinking about things and have their opinions, and we can get my general hope is that we can have sort of the housekeeping done before auction day. Auction day is already long enough.
Yeah, yes, very true.
It gets very tiring by AAA.
Very
Um,
true. You end up spending, like I said, at least an hour on rules. Usually it
mhm.
gets heated, and then people go into the auction kind of hot,
Yeah,
and it's
real spicy.
which is funny because we don't really. I mean, I wouldn't say we have very many hotheads, but the thing that happens too is you have 2, 3 owners who are really like invested into this rule
Mhm.
change, and then you
Yeah,
have 9 people who have absolutely no idea what they're even talking about, and
yeah,
then so you have to explain it, and then you don't explain it great, and then there's all these points that already took place on the email chain. It's like,
right.
so if there's any way that we could hammer this
We
out.
can, like,
What's that?
limit, like, presentations. Each side has, like, 5 minutes to present their side and, like, 1-minute rebuttal of the other ones, and
Right, right. That's why I'm so
time cap
shocked.
it somehow. Have,
Right,
like, some sort of handout. "Alright, this is what it would look like." I think because part of the problem is always just, like, explaining the rules are kinda like we're having that problem right now in just, like, explaining with just words without, like, some sort of diagram or
right,
anything, like, what this rule change would look like. You have to real paint a mental picture of a spreadsheet, basically, which is a difficult thing to do.
right. Very fair, and yeah, very fair. And there's always so many like variations of options to do,
Yeah,
that can be tough. And that was at least the goal of last year's like madness, was like we could do 1,000 things. Like, just tell me which ones you like in which
you
order.
gotta pick one.
Um, some people didn't like that. That's fair. Um, but at least we got the season in for me.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I agree. I like the sort of well, if we're deciding between 4 versions of one option, let's just vote on those, you know, sort your order and preference. We know we have to do something, or even if one of the options is do nothing,
right.
if you have that sort of preference, we don't have to be like, well, we're not moving guys too much on preference. We're just sort of all agree that like we're in 4 different camps and none of us have 50%. So we need to figure out a way to get to some sort of cohesion so we can move forward.
Right, right, and that was. Ooh, I don't even like enjoy thinking about last year and the way that Hal had to go down, and it was
Yeah.
rough. But I think that's a testament to the league that we were able to get through that because that was rough. Um, but I do
We
think that
figured some things out. I think like by the time we got to like the 10p option, I was like, I'm doing a terrible job explaining it. I just need to like show people what it looks like, and then we can decide from there.
right, right, I totally agreed. And luckily, I think this year I'm hoping that we I don't know if we're gonna have very many of those. I think that last year basically it was trying to get to a schedule and trying to get to uh, the expansion or not to it. There were other things
Yeah,
like COVID back then was so unknown that there were
yeah,
other things like we obviously talked about whether even to have the season,
right.
and we were all
Or
torn
like
on
the
that.
fail safe. What happens if it all gets canceled, sort of thing.
Right. So luckily this year, I don't really think we have even any that are like, well, we have like six options. Which ones do we want to go with?
Right.
It's rather like, do we want to stick with pods or do we want to go back to the old way? Do we
Hmm.
want to add some roster spots for this year or not? And if so, three, four, whatever, we could come up with a number. So that's good.
Yeah. We got to try some things that we probably wouldn't have ended up doing without the COVID shortened year, and now we can just decide whether those things are something we like and want to keep.
Right, right. So what I might try, and half the people might hate it, but on the backings of this, I might try to have maybe even if it's a week before or the week of the draft to say, hey, the cutoff for your proposed rules or whatever is
Yeah.
Monday, and we're gonna try to do like another Survey Monkey on
Mhm.
Thursday or Friday. See if we can kind of get this consensus, and then
Yeah.
Saturday's the draft or whatever. And if something
Right.
carries over, then we can discuss it there, or if somebody needs to present
Mhm.
something. So maybe I'll give that a shot. Sometimes that works well, and other times it doesn't. So I don't know.
Well, I think hopefully you have like a captive audience. People have not so many things that they can be doing right now, so they're all in on doing the virtual rule discussion.
That's very true, and as shown by the YouTube videos coming
Yeah,
out.
going a little stir crazy,
It's like, what else
figure
do I
all
got to
this
do?
stuff
Right, exactly, exactly. So, any final kind of thoughts? I think that's the end of my list here.
out. One thing you're talking about earlier, talking about if we had to move off ESPN, we would lose our history. One thing that I have not forgotten is that in the league history, um, back in the day, we used to have like extra weeks on the last week, even though the championship game would end on Sunday.
Right. I think I know
So
where
I
you're
don't know if
going.
I think I'm talking about the 2011 standings. So I've been, going back trying to think of like back when my team was good.
Yep.
Uh,
I think I
there
know
you are on
exactly where you're going.
ESPN, cheating Raiders as the champion and
That's
not.
right. If anybody ever had to go back and look at our league, they would think that I have two championships.
Yeah,
Because yeah, like it spanned. We only do obviously 1 week, but it was like a week and a half or something that they
right.
allowed. Yeah, and so it thinks that I won, even though clearly it was the Young Bucks.
Very funny.
I know exactly where you're going with that. That's great. So yeah,
Yeah,
I guess if we did ever have to move, we could correct that wrong.
yeah,
And
yeah. It's also true for 2012. So according to this, I have no championships, which is, you know, pick a guy when he's down.
right, right, right. Oh boy.
I haven't been good since then, but according to yes, but no one remembers, goes back long enough to remember.
Right. So if Midtown or West Coast ever get in there and look at the history of the league,
Yeah,
this Young Bucks team is a joke.
yeah.
Not
Those guys
true,
don't
folks.
realize I used to be good at this.
Not yeah. The Young Bucks were an absolute dynasty back in the day,
Yeah,
and they're getting there. You know what? They're getting there.
it's tough. We'll see.
It is
We got some
possible.
hope.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. Well, my friend, I will probably let you go and enjoy the
All
rest
right.
of your well, almost weekend here.
Yeah.
Hopefully this recorded. I think it did. but you never know. Cross your fingers. But yeah, look for some more content. After I'm gonna post this one, probably Monday,
All right.
and then I got another series coming that I think you guys will enjoy. It's about each and every one of you. Um,
Oh.
let's just say I probably won't make them public to the world of YouTube, not because they're bad, but because it's more personal. So
It's niche.
yeah, it is very. Oh yes, it's niche for sure. So
So, thanks for having me on, Todd, and thanks for doing all these things. I've been enjoying getting the text message around noon every day so I could listen in.
yeah, yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate you watching it. And if you go out to the channel right now, there is something I scheduled it for noon.
All
So
right.
go out there and have a look.
Don't forget to tell people to smash the like button and
That's right.
subscribe and all those
That's right.
things.
I
We
have
got to
eight.
work on your YouTube personality
That's
skills.
true. That's true. I'm kind of like an anti YouTube where I don't say it and maybe they'll do it, but it hasn't worked so far. I only have 8 subscribers, so three of us in the league haven't done it yet. So come on, folks.
Who are they?
I don't
Who
know.
are the holdouts? Very rude.
Very rude. All right, my friend. I will talk to you soon. I appreciate you being on the
All right.
show.
Yeah, no worries.
And don't hang up yet. I'll end this thing here, and then we can talk for a second. Peace out,
Okay.
everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a good one.